These Meta layoffs have been pretty hard to miss, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they've been all over the headlines. And I think it's making a lot of us wonder what it means for the future of work.
Right.
You know, whether we're in tech or not. So I'm really glad we're doing this deep dive today. You sent over a bunch of articles, some firsthand accounts. Should be interesting to unpack what's really going on at Meta beyond just those, Meta to lay off thousands headlines.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about this is it doesn't seem like it's a typical layoff. After companies overhire,
Right.
Zuckerberg's calling this like a year of efficiency,
Okay.
which seems like a pretty deliberate kind of
A
strategy.
year of efficiency. Yeah, it does sound kind of clinical when you put it like that.
Right?
What did that actually mean, though, for the people who work at Meta?
Well, it sounds like he's basically put everyone on notice that there's going to be like a higher performance bar across the board. And sources are saying that managers are feeling the pressure to put something like 12 to 15% of their employees as either met some or did not meet expectations.
Right.
And, as you can imagine, those kinds of ratings can put people in a pretty vulnerable spot right now.
Yeah, no kidding. So what's the vibe like from the employees you've been reading about?
A lot of anxiety and fear. There's some people even comparing it to like living in a dystopian novel.
Really?
Just like that feeling of going to work every day.
Oh, gosh.
Wondering if your job's going to be there at the end of the week.
That's rough. I mean, is this like a Meta thing, or are we seeing this kind of like efficiency push across the tech industry?
Yeah, definitely not just Meta. Microsoft, Amazon, Salesforce, a lot of these big tech companies are kind of scaling back after, that big pandemic hiring spree we saw.
Yeah.
But Meta definitely seems to be the most aggressive about it. And Zuckerberg's projecting this like laser focus on efficiency all the way through like 2025.
Wow, 2025. That's a long-term commitment to efficiency.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, why are they being so aggressive about this?
Right.
They're still like a hugely profitable company.
Yeah. And that's where things get even more interesting, because at the same time that they're, cutting costs and laying people off, they're pouring billions with a B into artificial intelligence.
Wow.
Specifically, this thing called generative AI.
Generative AI. Okay, that's another one of those like tech buzzwords I keep hearing everywhere.
Yeah.
But I gotta be honest, I don't really get it.
Oh,
What's the big deal with this specific type of AI?
So basically, it's all about AI that creates things. So think like writing text, composing music, designing images, even coding software.
Right.
Basically, anything a human can create, generative AI is learning to do too.
Oh, so it's not just like analyzing data like the typical AI.
Right.
It's actually like generating new content. That's honestly kind of scary.
Yeah.
Like, are robots coming for creative jobs now too?
Yeah. It's a valid concern. But from a company like Meta's perspective, they rely so heavily on user-generated content.
Right.
So generative AI is a huge opportunity for them.
Yeah, I guess I can see that.
Imagine AI tools that could help users create more engaging posts, generate like personalized ads, or even design totally new forms of virtual experiences.
All right, yeah, now that you put it that way, I get why they might be so interested in it.
Yeah.
But how does that explain like letting all these people go?
Well, to develop and implement this kind of cutting edge AI requires like a massive investment, both in terms of infrastructure and talent. So it's possible that what they're trying to do is free up resources for these AI ambitions by, cutting costs elsewhere.
So they're basically saying we need fewer social media managers and more like AI wizards.
I mean, that's a simplification, but essentially they're betting big on AI as the future of their business, and they're willing to restructure their whole workforce to make that happen.
But what about the human cost of all this? I mean, we're talking about thousands of people losing their jobs.
Right.
A lot of whom, helped build this company.
Exactly. And that's a significant concern, something that shouldn't be overlooked. These layoffs are causing real pain and uncertainty for a lot of individuals and families.
Yeah.
And for the people who remain at Meta, it's got to be so stressful witnessing your colleagues disappear and wondering, like, am I next?
Totally. That's got to be a tough environment to work in.
Definitely.
So if Meta is betting on this AI-powered future, are the layoffs just about saving money? Or is there something more to it?
That's the question, isn't it? Are they just streamlining their operations to free up resources for AI, or is there like a more fundamental shift happening? Are they changing direction, not just trimming the sails?
Okay, so we've got a year of efficiency, mass layoffs, and a massive investment in AI. It definitely feels like there's more to this than just like a cost-cutting measure.
Yeah.
But what does it all mean for Meta?
Let's dig deeper into that next. We can look at how this whole shift to AI could reshape their entire business model and their place in the tech landscape.
You know, something that's been bugging me about all of this is how Meta's framing these layoffs.
Yeah.
Like, they keep saying that it's mostly low performers who are being let go.
Right.
But then we see all these stories coming out from people who were exceeding expectations and still got laid off. So how does that square with this whole efficiency thing?
Well, it's a good point. It really raises the question, is this about individual performance, or are there these like larger forces at play here? And I think we have to remember Meta's making these huge investments in AI, specifically generative AI.
Right.
That's got to be part of the equation somehow.
Okay, so break it down for me. How does this generative AI tie into Meta's overall strategy?
All right.
And like, why might it actually explain letting go of high performers?
Well, think about Meta's core business. Social media, connecting people, sharing experiences. Generative AI has the potential to really supercharge all of that.
Okay.
Imagine AI tools that can help you create more engaging content or even personalize it based on your interests and connections.
So like AI suggesting what I should post or like helping me write a funnier caption or something.
Exactly.
Okay, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
But also a little creepy.
It is a double-edged sword for sure.
Yeah.
But from Meta's perspective, generative AI could be a total game changer when it comes to user engagement. And it goes beyond just posts, too.
Oh, really?
Think about targeted advertising. Imagine AI crafting ads that are so personalized to you that they actually feel relevant instead of just spammy.
Okay, I'm starting to see the business implications here. More engaging content,
Yeah.
better ads.
Yeah,
That all translates to more money for Meta,
exactly.
but I still don't see how that justifies laying off people who are doing their jobs well.
Okay, well, here's where things get even more strategic. Developing and implementing this kind of sophisticated AI requires a completely different skill set than running a social media platform.
Okay.
You need experts in machine learning, data science, natural language processing,
Right.
people who can build and train these complex algorithms.
So it's not that Meta doesn't need like social media experts anymore.
Right.
It's more that they need to shift their workforce to prioritize these very specific AI skills.
Exactly. It's like Meta's saying, look, we're not just a social media company anymore. We're an AI company that happens to have a social media platform.
Interesting.
And to make that transition, they need to bring in a whole new breed of talent.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
It's not just about cutting costs. It's about reallocating resources to support this new direction. But even so, it doesn't seem like they've handled this whole thing very well. I mean, we've seen so much pushback from employees who feel like they were treated really unfairly.
Yeah, you're right. And I think that's where the how of these layoffs becomes just as important as the why. You know, Meta might be making the right strategic moves in terms of investing in AI, but if they alienate their entire workforce in the process, it could backfire big time.
Totally. People are Meta's biggest asset, right? I mean, they're the ones who built this platform, created all that content, and ultimately made Meta the success it is today. So if they feel undervalued and mistreated, that's going to impact morale, productivity, and ultimately innovation.
It's like a classic case of short-term thinking versus long-term vision.
Right.
You can't build a successful AI-powered future if you destroy your company culture and lose the trust of all your employees along the way.
So even if they're making the right bets on AI, they need to figure out how to bring their people along on that journey.
Right.
Otherwise, they risk losing the very talent they need to make this AI vision a reality.
It's a tough balancing act. On the one hand, they need to move quickly and decisively to stay ahead in this whole AI race.
Right.
But on the other hand, they also need to treat their employees with respect and fairness.
Yeah.
Even the ones who are being let go.
And it's not just about the people who are leaving either.
Yeah, right.
We've got to consider the impact on the ones who stay.
For sure.
Imagine going to work every day, wondering if you're going to be next, seeing your colleagues disappear, feeling pressured to constantly prove your worth.
Yeah, that kind of environment can be incredibly toxic.
Absolutely. That kind of fear and uncertainty can really stifle creativity and innovation.
Totally.
Which is kind of ironic considering that Meta is trying to position itself as this leader in the AI space.
It really highlights how important leadership is.
Yeah.
Especially during times of change and upheaval.
Right.
How leaders communicate, how they treat their employees, how they make decisions. all of that has a huge impact on the company's culture and its ability to get through these kinds of transitions.
So it's not just about the technology, it's about the human element.
Right.
Meta needs to figure out how to balance their ambition in the AI space with the need to create a workplace where people feel valued, respected, and empowered to do their best work.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where technological innovation and human well-being can coexist.
Yeah.
And even reinforce each other.
So we've talked about the why of these layoffs, the shift to AI, and we've talked about that. How? The way Meta's managing this whole transition.
Right.
But let's zoom out for a second. What does this whole Meta situation tell us about the bigger picture?
Yeah.
You know, like what does it mean for the future of work in a world where AI is becoming more and more powerful?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And that's what we're going to explore as we wrap up this deep dive.
All right, so we've really gone deep on this whole Meta situation, you know, with the layoffs and the AI.
Yeah.
But I want to kind of zoom out for a minute and think about the bigger picture. What does all of this tell us about the future of work in general? I mean, this isn't just a Silicon Valley problem, is it?
No, you're right. It's not. What we're seeing at Meta, I think, is just a small part of a much bigger transformation that's happening across a lot of different industries.
Okay, so help me connect the dots here. How does what's going on at Meta like relate to someone who's, say, listening to this while driving to their job at a bank or a school or a hospital? Should everyone be freaking out that robots are going to take their jobs?
Well, I don't know about freaking out, but I definitely think it's smart to be paying attention to these kinds of trends and to be proactive. The same things that are driving these changes at Meta, you know, things like automation AI, the need for businesses to constantly be evolving and adapting.
Right.
Those are forces that are impacting basically every part of the economy.
So what is the average person supposed to do about it?
Yeah.
I mean, I can barely keep up with my email inbox, let alone retrain myself for some like futuristic AI job that I don't even understand.
Well, it's less about trying to predict exactly what the future holds and more about developing this mindset of continuous learning and being adaptable. The skills that were in high demand 5 years ago might be totally obsolete 5 years from now. And that pace of change is only speeding up.
So the message is learn to code or become a data scientist.
Well,
I'm not sure we're all cut out for that.
No, and it's not just about technical skills either. Actually, what we often call soft skills, those things are becoming even more valuable.
Oh, interesting. Like what?
Things like critical thinking, problem solving, communication, collaboration,
Right.
all that stuff.
The human stuff, basically.
Exactly. The stuff robots aren't so good at yet anyway.
Yeah, for now.
Those human skills, that ability to really think critically, to connect with other people, to come up with creative solutions. Those are going to be the things that set people apart in the workplace of the future.
So it sounds like we shouldn't necessarily be afraid of AI, but we should be prepared to like work alongside it.
Exactly.
Figure out how to use its strengths while focusing on the things that WE as humans do best.
I think that's a great way to put it. AI is ultimately just a tool.
Yeah.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. It has the potential to automate a lot of those boring, tedious tasks and free us up to focus on more meaningful and creative work.
Yeah.
But it's up to us to guide its development and make sure that it's being used ethically and responsibly.
This is starting to sound a lot less like robots are taking over and more like we're moving into this new era of work where humans and AI are collaborating. But it's still a pretty big shift, right? Where does someone even begin?
I think the best place to start is by just being curious.
Okay.
Stay informed about what's happening in your industry and in the world in general. Explore different online learning platforms, take some courses, go to some workshops, connect with people who are doing the kind of work that interests you.
Yeah.
Just treat learning as a lifelong adventure, not a chore.
I like that. Be a lifelong learner. It definitely sounds less intimidating than become a coding ninja by next Tuesday.
Right.
So if there's one main takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with from this whole deep dive, what would it be?
I'd say the future isn't something that's already set in stone. It's constantly being shaped by the choices we make today. So by staying informed, being proactive, and embracing that idea of lifelong learning, we can all play a role in creating a future of work that's both prosperous and fulfilling.
I love that. On that note of cautious optimism, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
That's good.
We've covered a lot of ground, you know, from Meta's layoffs to the rise of AI and what it all means for the future of work. It's been a fascinating conversation.
It has.
And maybe a little bit unsettling at times.
Yeah.
But if you're listening to this and feeling a little overwhelmed, you're definitely not alone. We're all figuring this out as we go.
Yeah.
Just remember to stay curious, keep learning, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Who knows? Maybe your question will spark the next big breakthrough. Until next time, keep diving deep, and we'll see you on the other side.